Much better. That always gets me because I'm like the last time I was in this project was obviously bouncing like a mix or whatever. So the little playhead's always at the very end from where it stopped playing. So I go to record and then it just plays where the playhead was at the end of our last episode instead of starting at the beginning, which is where we want to start. Actually, I guess it doesn't matter because I can shift the track later, but it just looks weird and it'll mess with my template that I have.
Yeah. Too many
Anyways.
Too many minutes. Hi, I'm Nick.
And I'm Josh.
And this is the PUDs Podcast.
What's up, guy?
Nothing much, dude. Nothing much. Just hanging out. I have to put the light on. It's fully dark now. It's not even debatable. I could sit here in the dark by candlelight, I guess, if I chose. But we're losing daylight quickly.
Yeah.
These days, getting nippy out this week. Though I guess it's supposed to be kind of warm going into this weekend. But quite nippy out there, quite fallish.
Yeah,
looking real pretty too. I feel like the foliage is popping.
It's popping
around here.
When do we fall back? When's daylight savings? Is that in November at some point?
Yeah, I believe it's right before Ash's birthday, so I think it's like November 3rd. Get a calendar over here. Yeah, I believe it's Sunday the 3rd.
That's right.
Or Monday the 4th, maybe, that we fall back. Or I guess technically it's Saturday into Sunday, usually, I think.
Yeah, Saturday into a Sunday, yeah.
Get
That's like a dismal part of the year, dude. That's when it's like
I'm not
dark.
gonna lie.
Starts getting dark at like 4. It's like rough, dude. And you come home, you eat dinner, and then you're like, oh, it's time for bed. It feels like it's like 11 o'clock at night because it's been dark for like 6 hours.
Yeah, it's tough for sure. No, I know it's getting close to being my birthday and Christmas, so I guess that's one silver lining.
Yeah, those are two good times.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we had a fun weekend this weekend. We spent some time together. Time together. It was good.
It was nice to get the two great families together, the two great houses, and babysitter / friend of the podcast, Sarah, the official babysitter of the PUDs Podcast.
Official babysitter of the PUDs Podcast. Too funny.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to get everybody together. So we went to. So for the listeners, we went out to I think it's pronounced Sauchuk's.
Yeah,
Sauchuk's corn maze. Yeah, Sauchuk's corn maze and pumpkin patch over in Plympton, Massachusetts.
A town that I didn't know exists till we're going there. I should say.
Oh, you didn't know about Plympton, dude?
I'm like, where's Plympton? It must be pretty tiny. It's like basically like towards the tail end of 44, like before you hit Plymouth. It's like around like Kingston and sort of Rochester and that kind of area.
Like I think like Mansfield and Middleborough is like strangely not too far. Like Lakeville's not that far from there.
Yeah, Mansfield's
like in a weird
probably
spot.
a good drive.
Yeah,
I think
probably not
Mansfield's
Mansfield.
near us.
I think I'm in Middleborough.
For those of you that aren't hip with your Massachusetts geography, we're just trying to give you a little fill in so you know where we're talking about.
Nowhere near Gloucester.
There's it looked like after driving through it for 15 minutes, it looks like it's mostly houses, cranberry bogs, and farms. That seems to be the Plympton vibe, and a couple corner stores here and there.
Yeah, that's an accurate description. It's a great fall drive, though. I'll tell you.
Oh yeah, it was pretty. It was pretty for sure.
It's a great fall drive. But yeah, we've been going to this corn maze for about, I think like this was like our 3rd or 4th year going, and we usually we make a whole day out of it. I guess I'll throw it to you, Nick. This was your first experience over at Sauchuk's. What'd you think, man? How'd you like it?
It was rather delightful, I have to say. So they had, Rylan very much enjoyed. We appreciate you kind of mentioning it and inviting us. Yeah, it was a good time. I don't know, what were the tickets again? Do you know off the top of your head? I know
like
they weren't
$20.
Yeah, it was like 20 something bucks, but basically like you got like a pumpkin patch. They had 2 really cool corn mazes, which I'm realizing, did we actually do both corn mazes?
No, we only did.
Yeah, we did one.
Yeah, we did the one.
I want to go back to
we were trying to fit
one.
a lot in. We were trying
to fit up. But corn mazes, they got a whole playground over there. They had a bunch of sort of like jungle gym type obstacle course stuff for kids to play on. They had bouncy pads, which I think Rylan had too much fun maybe at the bouncy pads because she was not happy when we took her off. She wasn't happy, but we kind of expected that to happen. But I thought it was very well organized. Like, dude, we kept. I feel like this is just like as you're getting older like 30s comment, but you're like, damn, those bathrooms are so clean. I didn't think they'd be that clean. Like the porta potties, all the portable restrooms
clean.
and stuff they had were like really quite clean and not that disgusting, considering we're at like an open sort of farm attraction with, there had to be like several hundred people there, easy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's I'll break it down for all those people that have families or like just want to go enjoy like the perfect, like if you wanted a little taste of everything, that fall has to offer.
Fresh hot cider donuts.
Oh, fresh hot cider donuts. Yeah. So yeah, this farm, they have two corn mazes. There's a tractor ride to a pumpkin patch. They have that. They have, like Nick said, there's a playground. There's a bigger playground for older kids. There's a smaller playground for younger kids. There's I think Nick posted the video already, but there's I think it's called a Raptor. Yeah, a Raptor that pulls like these carts around.
Like a UTV, basically.
Yeah, that pulls these carts around at a pretty good speed. So that's a fun ride.
Carts might be carts might be giving it a lot. I believe the one we were riding in was half cut up 50-gallon water drums that were fitted with seatbelts.
Yeah,
it worked awesome, but like it was funny. You were like, oh, we got the one, like, because there was two of them, right? It was like one that was
one that was newer. It was pumpkins, one, and it was newer, like steel. But we didn't get the pumpkin one. We got the we got the older one. Dude, that guy was whipping that thing too, man. He was whipping it around. So there's that. There's apple shooters where you can basically launch apples at targets. I
did want to check that out next year.
Yeah.
Next year.
There's like a ball shooter where you can play like shoot like wiffle balls at each other, almost like paintball style. There was a dog show. There's tetherball. There's a petting zoo for like they had these little goats in there that you could pet,
like dwarf goats or something.
Yeah, there's little carnival type games. There's like hay bale like.
I was gonna say they had one of those things where you like basically with like the sledgehammer where you try to get the
strength machine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Rings the bell if you can hit it, but nobody ever hits it.
No, there's like so many different things. There's even we didn't even find it until the end. There's like even for smaller kids, they have like an even smaller area that the littler kids can go play in and bounce on their own little things and do all that stuff.
Where was that?
That was like where remember after you were changing Rylan.
Yeah.
You had to change Rylan in the porta potty, and I had found
because she exploded.
While
we're in the pumpkin patch.
That was a pumpkin patch explosion.
Yes.
Yeah. So I found afterwards there was like a whole smaller children's area with like a private changing room and nursing room for like nursing mothers and stuff like that. So
we didn't. I remember you mentioning that. Yeah, I didn't realize they had like attractions over there though. I remember you saying the changing room and stuff. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we spent like 3.5 hours there. I don't even think we did half of what they offered.
No, and it flew by. It did not feel like when I was seeing the time, I'm like, oh yeah, like we're probably gonna get going because it's definitely like way past Ryland's nap time.
Yeah, and we got to do so much. Like we only waited in line for maybe like 5 minutes to get on the carts, and
that was it. And I mean, they had food. They had like food trucks. They also just had like food, like hot dogs and fries and apple cider slushies. Those looked really good.
Yeah, those were good.
They had, I think, some beer tents too. They had a couple breweries there maybe, and all sorts of snacks. So I mean, it was cool that you could go in there and like bring your lunch like we did if we wanted to, or you could actually buy stuff there. And the food was super reasonable. It was like for a soda and a hot dog, I think it was like $6 or something.
Yeah. Soda, hot dog, and fries was like $6.
Oh man, it was a good time.
Sauchuk, man, it's very very family friendly, very budget friendly. Like I said, $20 to get in. We got to get them to sponsor the pod, maybe.
Yeah, be like, we should have them on next fall. That'd be a good idea.
That would be cool.
Find their owner or whatever and like interview them and stuff. Yeah, it was cool. It's good to see too. Like you can tell it's definitely like just local farm people like working to put on. Like it's not a big corporation or anything. And like I said, I just was kind of amazed at how well managed it was, having been to like fair type stuff like that pretty frequently in my life. And I was like, man, this is like super well organized. And they did a great job.
they only sell a certain number of tickets too, so it's not like it doesn't get overloaded there. So there's only like a certain amount of people that can get in, and because once the tickets are sold out, that's it. No more people can.
Yeah, I have to like reserve for that day, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think it was.
Yeah, so it worked out for us. The weather was great.
Yeah.
The maze was awesome.
It was fun.
Yeah,
I did want to call out while you touched upon the weather, but I thought it was funny. So this is just a general thought about fall and people's dress habits. But I feel like once it starts to get a little bit cold, like there's one cold day, like so it was like what, like probably 70 something degrees when we were there that day.
Yeah.
And like we had we both, I mean, our better halves were making fun of us, but we had like the dad look we both had like kids backpacks carriers on with like all the supplies, and then we both had backwards hats and like and t-shirts and khaki shorts and sneakers.
We had regular t-shirts, hats backwards, sunglasses on, backpacks on with the diapers in it, like the cargo shorts with like hike. I don't even know if you had your hiking boots on, but I had mine on.
No, I just had my trail runners on. But I mean, I might as well basically my hiking shoes.
But it was us and every other dad that was at the corn maze that day, all dressed exactly the same.
So I was gonna mention that, which was one thing, but the other thing was like once it gets nippy, I feel like in New England, like there were also a ton of folks there in like flannel shirts and like decked out people that look like they were sweating their bizzalls off, frankly. But it's like because it's fall, we gotta look good. I'm like, dude, I just want to be like, take off that wool flannel for God's sakes. You look so hot.
A lot of flannels, a lot of floppy hats. Like
a lot of floppy hats.
Of like those pastelly like beiges like and like light browns.
Yeah, it was funny. I was going through pictures today and I shared some with you guys because I had my camera, and it was funny on the bouncy stuff. I'm like, this just like shows like our age, but like some kid had like a Nirvana, like a little kid, like a 2-year-old had like a Nirvana sweatshirt on or something. I mean, though we're kind of technically young for really Nirvana, but it's just kind of funny. I'm like, that's not like Dark Side of the Moon sweatshirt kind of vibes. Like maybe you would have had like 10 years ago if you had a kid. Now it's like Nirvana on a sweatshirt.
Oh yeah. Next, it's gonna be Outcast soon, dude. Like,
yeah, dude, Outcast. You should do that. You should do that for Jeremiah.
I probably will. We're rounding. Shirt. We're rounding to that point where we are like retro.
Yeah, we're the people we're that age of the people that bring the kids for these things now.
I thought it was hilarious though. I really thought it was so funny,
awesome.
Dude. How all the dads, you could just point them all out because they all had the backpacks on, backwards hats, sunglasses, like rocking it out.
Man.
No, it was a great time. It was so good to get you guys out, get everybody together, and go enjoy that experience. And like I said, it was something that we've been doing for years, and we're like, we got to get our friends.
You're Sauchuk's veterans.
Yeah, we're the vets, dude. We don't need a map. A map, dude. I don't need a map to get through this maze. Yeah, I thought the mazes are cool too, because I didn't even know until this year. But they dedicate the maze, so they take I guess a portion of the proceeds, and they dedicate that money to whoever their maze is built after, I guess. So this year was like the Boston Bruins. So the maze on one side was a giant Bruins logo that you had to find your way around and through, and the other side, the second maze, was just a big pair of hockey sticks. So, so a portion of the proceeds goes towards like the Boston Bruins Foundation and whatever that foundation.
Oh, that's cool. That makes sense again why they had the Boston Bruins logo in the corn maze.
Yeah. I think last year was like Big Papi, so I think it was like an outline of him, and then they donated to his foundation. So yeah, I think it's really cool. Like I said, it's a great out in the woods farm. It's a great experience. It's not you don't feel stuffed up. Like it's not a million people there. There's a comfortable amount of people.
Yeah, it wasn't congested at all. I kind of agree with that. Sometimes that can be a thing too. But they got plenty of land back there, so they made good use of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you could buy pumpkins. I mean, we mentioned the pumpkin patch, but you could actually buy pumpkins and do apple picking and buy apples there too. The prices were a bit steep.
Yeah,
I will say, but you can get it there if you want. They had some nice pumpkins. They had some probably like $50 pumpkins. Yeah,
those pumpkins were huge. I couldn't believe how.
Yeah, I'll have to share some photos of our experience for sure on the page.
Yeah, I like to. I think one of my favorite things is because I like to keep, especially if you're eating and stuff like that at places like that. I like to make sure like my hands are clean and stuff like that. And I know they got the porta potties and all that, but I love the hand washing station set up with like those barrels and you just pump.
Yeah, and they got hand pumps.
Yeah,
Or
soap and all
foot
that.
pumps, not hand pumps for the water. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like I said, super clean, super great for the family. We had a fantastic time. It was terrific. So I'm sure Nick will share some more of the pictures and stuff that we took. But yeah, what an experience, man! It was so great to get out with you and Rylan and Ashley and Sarah. It was a great time.
Yeah, I agreed. It was great to get out with all you guys. It was a lot of fun. So so after that, I ended up heading up to Diamond Hill because I was still trying to work on some elevation for the Taylor James Steeves challenge. So I ended up running over there after, and I think did like 9 loops or something. So I was approaching. I think at that point I got up to a little over 29,000. So I had it in my head. I wanted to finish over 30,000 throughout this whole thing. I probably called it out back. So I was approaching it. So went there and banged out some more on Saturday, and then ended up hooking up with my friend Mark on Sunday. And instead of going to Diamond Hill, I actually went down to Arcadia in my home state of Rhode Island. So that was interesting. There's a ton of land down there. It's kind of like the western central portion of the state. So knocked the elevation out there and got it over 30,000 feet. And I did want to shout out to them quickly. So I was fortunate enough overall between my donations. I want to thank everybody too who donated. And my company matches from Mika ended up coming in like clutch on like Saturday morning. They got there, and the challenge wrapped up on midnight on Sunday. Ooh. So that was super convenient. But I ended up coming in 3rd place overall between donations and elevation gain. I think I came in like 3rd or 4th for elevation gain total, just over 30,000 feet. And the Taylor James Steeves Foundation, man, they raised over $30,000 this year. Ooh. So kind of shout back to our episode with them, and Britt was mentioning what she wanted to do. So that's basically at least 30 $1,000 grants for patients and who have been diagnosed with genetic lung cancer and people having issues with genetic lung cancer. So
so they're going to be able to help at least just off of this year's donations, at least 30
people. Yeah.
That's
so
awesome, dude.
I wanted to call that out. That was fantastic. So
congratulations to you too. Top 3, man. You did a great job. You did a great job, dude.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it was a lot of loops. I got to go back and figure out how many times I looped up Diamond Hill, but I think I probably did like almost half my gain there in total. It was good to finish up somewhere different. Like I was actually going to go to Diamond Hill on Sunday again. Mark kind of reached out being like, "Oh, you up north today?" And I'm like, "No, I'm hanging out because of the weather." And he's like, "Oh, do you want to kind of go to Arcadia or do something different?" We were texting back. So it was fun. We went to like Mount Tom, which is actually like a 400-foot hill in Rhode Island, but kind of cool. And then we saw Stepstone Falls. So that was pretty neat. We'll have to get over there sometime with you guys. It's probably probably a little bit more of a ride for you guys, but it's actually like only 40 minutes away from here. So not actually that much further than Diamond Hill. So that was cool. And then I figured I'd take it back since we had so much to talk about on our last episode with Mike and Lori, which, man, that episode was super fun. Did you get a chance to listen to it? We might as well recap now.
Yeah, man. I really enjoyed listening. I'm not a big listening to people's travel stories guy, but let me tell you, that was very, very interesting for me. Like just being in another country, all the preparation, everything that they had to do to get out there. And like, I didn't realize how much hopping around they were going to have to do once they got out there. Cause I heard a little bit about, what happened with Mike beforehand.
Yeah. Cause I had told you.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. And then,
or you might have hung out with him, but either way.
He might, I think he might have told me, but either way, like to hear the whole story and just for it to get to, even that's like such a small portion of that episode. I really enjoyed everything else leading up to that. I was like, wow, what a trip, dude. What an absolute trip that was. Yeah, I mean,
so like full disclosure, like I'll usually end up listening to our episodes like on the podcast on a podcast platform, even though I like go through and listen to these and mix them and stuff. But I was pretty happy with how that one came out. It reminded me that the Phil Karsha episode and that one I feel like do not feel as long as I thought they were when I was actually mixing them, listening back. It was pretty intriguing. So if I was finding it interesting, I'm hoping everybody else out there is finding it really interesting too. But thanks again, Mike and Lori, for coming on. And they, like I said, they did a super job prepping. I just wanted to give them a shout out again. They literally had notes and
fantastic.
photos for us to share, and that wild video of like in the helicopter when they're like going by Everest. I shared that on Facebook and I think our Instagram page. Man, that was just wild.
What a great video that was.
Looks crazy, just stunning views and looks surreal, frankly.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give them one more shout out. But yeah, so on that episode, we just had so much. I didn't really want to get into, how I can get lengthy when I talk about hiking. So I didn't want to dive too much into our Carrabasset Valley trip. So figured tonight.
Ever said that about you.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever said that about you.
Never,
once.
Ever. I never talk too much about hiking and mountains and stats. So I didn't want to waste too much time on it since we had such a long episode already. So I figured we'd dive back into it tonight and catch up. So back on Thursday, October 3rd, we drove up to the Carrabasset Valley. We kind of planned ahead of time with my mom, and then I was going to say the in-laws of the podcast, my other parents, Lisa and Tony, and we rented a house up in Carrabasset Valley, Maine, and that's sort of the area you're in between a couple of the different Maine 4,000 footers. You've got sort of the Bigelows, Reddington, and the Crockers, and then you've got Sugarloaf and Spalding, kind of all in this little central area. And other than Old Spec, that's all the New England 67 4,000 footers that Ash and I have left. So. We had never been here before. We've never been in the area. We're going to get familiar with it coming up as we work through these peaks. And it was gorgeous. Like I said, drove up on Thursday morning, and friend of the Wilkie. I always say friend of the Wilkie when I mention him.
Why are you
friend
saying
of the I don't know. It's every time I say
it.
I try to say friend of the podcast Wilkie, though. I say friend of the Wilkie podcast.
Nick, this is Bush League. League, dude.
So I'd mentioned it to Wilkie and some of our other friends, and he was kind of on the fence and eventually decided to join us, and I was stoked that he did. But friend of the podcast, Wilkie, joined us, and we all kind of followed up in a caravan. Tony and Lisa went a little bit later, and it was about a 5-hour ride, of maybe a little bit over that, up to Carrabasset Valley. It's a pretty good haul from here. It's almost in line latitude wise with like Baxter State Park, which I thought it was further south, but it's more just west and central and like the northwestern, I guess, quadrant of Maine. It's kind of smack up there, like you're 30 minutes from Canada, I believe.
Nice.
Broke up the ride a little bit and stopped for lunch in Farmington, so that was kind of good. Farmington's like basically just mostly a college campus. I think it's like the University of Maine, Farmington, but a really pretty New England town. It was very much like stereotypical, like has a little square and it's got sort of a main street with like old mill buildings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty neat to stop in, and it was a nice breakup of the ride. So we checked in. Tony and Lisa kind of got there later and stuff, and I kind of started going through the hike I actually wanted to do. I was pretty set on doing Sugarloaf and Spalding. I didn't know exactly what approach. I kind of had been doing research all week, and I think worth mentioning is that there's just not as much information on the Maine 4,000 footers. Like the New Hampshire 48, you can find a ton. I mean, there's a good amount of information like online, but it's not, I find, like as explicit with details and stuff as looking up, say, like how to hike like Cannon Mountain and Franconia Notch or something. Like a lot of the Maine 4,000 footers, especially the ones outside Baxter, are less traveled, frankly, because it's only people trying to do their New England 67 usually that are getting out there, or just local Maine hikers.
Yeah. I think you said this before, actually, about Maine being hard to research.
Yeah, I probably mentioned it last episode or even the past, but it kind of reminds me a little bit more. There's probably more information than Vermont on a lot of these peaks than the Vermont 4,000 footers, but just as not as much. And I did want to shout out, and especially because this book is pretty new, but a friend of the podcast, Mike and Lori, got me this book, Hiking the Maine 4,000 footers, or Hiking Maine's 4,000 footers, a couple of years ago. And it's by an author, Doug Dunlap, and it actually just came out in 2021, so it's pretty new. Obviously, there's the AMC Maine trail guides and stuff that you can find, but as far as I know, there's not really a sort of 4,000 footer oriented Maine hiking book. Maybe feel free to shoot us a message if there is. This is the only one that I could really find that Mike found online.
If you know a Maine hiking book, make sure you add us. Let Nick know. Yeah. Send us the link.
Yeah, let us know. But I was fortunate that Mike got me that, I think, a few years ago at this point. So it has pretty good details on all the routes to the Maine 4,000 footers. And after doing a bit of reading, I decided on tackling Sugarloaf and Spalding from the actual ski area. So Sugarloaf ski area, which is pretty well known. It's a pretty big ski resort. The alternative direction you can approach Sugarloaf from is Caribou Pond Road, which if you've ever started researching into doing Maine's 4,000 footers, there's a pretty good general consensus that driving some of the roads to the trailheads in Maine is just as adventurous, if not more adventurous, than actually hiking many of Maine's 4,000 footers. So a lot of these old roads are not super well maintained. I think a lot of them are probably like old forest roads, old lumber roads. And as you start reading and researching into this, you will no doubt come across all these stories of Caribou Pond Road. So as of right now, I believe it's washed out about a quarter of the mile from the official trailhead. So if you're going to go down that way, you're going to have an extra quarter mile walk, at least if you're doing Sugarloaf and Spalding. You can also hike Reddington and the Crockers from this road too. But you're going to hear stories about, like, basically don't take cars down it. You need a high clearance vehicle. I have a friend that just hiked Sugarloaf and Spalding from that side. And he was mentioning that he took his Subaru Outback down there. And like, even unless you had a big like truck to get across the washout, like you're not going to get across it. It's pretty legit.
Oh, damn.
And he was saying he wouldn't take a car down that road. He'd take at least an SUV because you might bottom out in spots or kind of whack the bottom of it and end up in a bad situation. Since Carrabasset Valley, probably goes without saying, there's not a ton around there. It's kind of a ski resort town. It's not really built up or anything. Pretty chill vibes, which was cool. But yeah, anyways, after reading that little bit about it and also realizing that the house was maybe 5 minutes from the ski slope area, I actually opted to do the ski slope. So we just kind of dodged Caribou Pond Road. That being said, we will have to get back out to Caribou Pond Road at some point to do the Crockers in Reddington. So we'll have a report on that one eventually on the podcast for you.
You gotta wait till it's ice.
Yeah.
You gotta wait till the ice is over and just drive across it.
I think a lot of those are closed in the winter. That's the other thing with a lot of these Maine ones. They don't even let people down them. But Caribou Pond Road has a sort of legend status as far as like going down it, and it apparently just washes out all the time. So I was like, we're just not going to deal with that nonsense. And it also would have added like a 25-minute ride or something, whereas we rode 5 minutes and got to the ski area. Yeah. So the trade-off with going up the ski area of Sugarloaf is that it does about 2,650 feet and about 2.2 miles to the summit. So it's a bit aggressive. You're going up the Binder and Tote roads. That's the route that we decided to actually take. I believe we took the Binder road up and the Tote road down. It takes you to the 4,250 foot summit of Sugarloaf. From there, short, steep, and sweet, pretty aggressive, pretty easy to follow, I think. And it's worth mentioning that Sugarloaf is actually the tallest summit in Maine outside of Baxter State Park. So you've got great views, to say the least, over everything. And it's also the highest summit between Katahdin in Maine and Mount Washington. So you're kind of sitting in the middle of almost like a valley with mountains, and I guess sort of like it's a lot more wide open than New Hampshire. It feels to me like we got to the top and you're like, oh wow, there's these like giant valleys, and you could see the Bigelows kind of right across from us and the Crockers in Reddington.
Because a lot less mountain ranges in Maine, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like it's not. I don't think, or maybe not as you could say mountain ranges, but the mountains to me just aren't clustered like hard together like the Whites in New Hampshire. Like it just doesn't really. And technically, the White Mountains do stretch into the very western corner, like where Old Speck is, into New Hampshire, Grafton Notch sort of area. But it kind of ends there, and then it's a lot of wide open lakes, and it seems like there's just a lot more wide open area than New Hampshire. Cool. So it's a really cool vibe. It's pretty developed up on the summit. There's like a helicopter pad and stuff. And the helicopter pad I was actually looking for because this is where we take the spur trail back down to the Appalachian Trail. And then you hook over to Spalding from there. So I don't think I mentioned yet, but basically the whole mileage and kind of stats for this route, I had a little bit of trouble finding elevation gain stats. So I'm going to kind of go across the collective GPS that we had on our watches, which I find usually to be pretty accurate. But it was about 9.9 miles out and back from the ski slopes to Sugarloaf and Spalding with about 4,250 feet. So don't knock me if you end up with a little bit less or a little bit more than that. I think it was fairly challenging. I don't think it was insane. It's a pretty good day though, especially with starting up those ski slopes in the morning. I know that the group was like, oh wow, this is a lot first thing in the morning. Get out of the car and just start heading up. The good news was,
the question is, did Tony make it?
He made it, dude. He crushed it.
Okay, then
he crushed it.
Probably all right. Probably not.
Yeah. Him and Wilkie, everybody did well, and Ash crushed it too. So everybody did really well. Everybody made it to Spalding and back. Worth mentioning that the really good news was the weather was like phenomenal. It was like probably like 40s that morning, maybe 40s, 50s on the summit. Got a little bit warmer throughout the day. And we actually like nailed peak foliage. So you know how they do those like foliage tracker sites on like for like New Hampshire and New York, and Massachusetts probably has one too. But if you were looking at Maine's foliage tracker site, we basically like we smacked like peak for that like region around Carrabasset Valley in Maine. So it was like literally peaking. I think technically the peak day was like maybe Thursday, Friday, like that week. So we were like basically days or within the week of that.
That's awesome.
And it was the foliage was great. I think it's some of the best foliage I've seen ever hiking in the mountains, and certainly like anywhere we've ever stayed up there. It was just phenomenal with oranges and yellows, and it very much added to like we were just like this is beautiful. Like we're staring all day.
That's so cool
at all the colors. So that was awesome. So after Sugarloaf, we hung up there for a little bit, and you hit a spur trail that takes you back to the 8T, as I mentioned earlier. Super dry in here. And I did want to mention too, if you're kind of looking for water and thinking about like, oh, is there going to be anywhere for water on this hike? I will say there was basically nothing from Sugarloaf to Spalding that looked viable. I know it's been dry this year, but there wasn't even any signs of like stream beds or anything. But it was really neat. There's actually a little box that's like on the side of the trail, maybe halfway between the Sugarloaf summit and the junction of the Appalachian Trail. And this box is sort of in the side of a hill. I'll have to post a picture of it. But within that box, if you open up the lid, there's actually like a freshwater spring underneath it.
Oh, wow.
Which was really cool. And even with how dry it's been, this thing was like running fine, like ice cold water. Obviously you have to filter it, but this proved handy later in the day when Wilkie was kind of running low on water, and we stopped to sort of filter some. And I actually just got some because I'm like, this ice cold water is better than the warm water that's sitting in my water bottle from this morning right now. So that's kind of a good lifesaver, and just wanted to pass that info along in case you're like me and you like to filter your water and not carry like an obnoxious amount with you unless you absolutely have to.
Post that pic.
Yeah, well, so down to the back down the spur, met up with the AT, and from here on out until you actually get to like close to the summit of Spalding, it was actually pretty nice. There's a little viewpoint, maybe like, I don't know, a quarter of a mile as you're heading towards Spalding that just sort of looks out into the valley. You can kind of see the corner of Abraham a little bit. And from there on, like you do basically 2 good size up and downs over sort of these little sub peaks, and then the third up that you basically hit is the good one that's up to Spalding. So you'll do probably about 400 or 500 feet of gain. Maybe 200 or 300 of that is actually hitting the junction with the spur trail that goes up Spalding, and maybe another 150, 200 feet off this little spur trail up to the summit of Spalding to actually get to Spalding. So Spalding, not too spectacular. It has one good view of Sugarloaf, so that's kind of neat. At least you get to see like where you came from, and then you can see Sugarloaf in sort of all its glory with all the summit buildings on it. And this was super confusing. So we got up there, and it was funny. There's actually a summit sign that says Spalding 3,988 feet, which is a little bit confusing because Spalding is a 4,000 footer, and it's one of the main 4,000 footers, and it's New England 67. So I was like, this is weird. So I didn't know why when we were up there. Probably just because I hadn't read all the info in the book, or maybe I glazed it over and just didn't think of it. But it turns out that Spalding was actually added to the main 4,000 footers and the New England 67 4,000 footers in 1998. So it just seems like a long time. It seems like they could have got a new sign up there.
Oh,
but
you think it's an old sign? I think it's shrunk.
No, it's an old sign. So basically the sign is from pre-1998. I don't know where the sign's actually from, but in 1998 they did a new survey at the time with like, I don't know, LiDAR or something, and they realized that Spalding is actually 4,010 feet. So that actually added it, and it also has the necessary prominence along the Sugarloaf Spalding ridgeline. From Abraham and whatnot too, to actually count as its own peak. So if you get up there and you're like me and I'm like, isn't this a 4,000 footer?
Sure changed me by what?
It turns out that
2 feet.
No, it's 3,998.
3,998.
3,988 actually.
Oh,
so it's 12 feet. But they missed it by a little bit, but that's what qualifies it. So if you get up there and you're confused, that's why. So after you hit Spalding, and also a ton of moose poop on Spalding and moose prints. So there's definitely moose up there. We didn't cross any. But it's always kind of cool to see that. But also the woods were so thick. I'm like, if there's a moose in here, like I don't want to be that close to it, to be honest.
Gotta get out of here.
So we hung out there. We ate some food, kind of refueled, had some chocolate and stuff. Made our way pretty quickly, actually. It's always funny when you're looking at ridge lines between stuff, especially when you're not familiar with the trail. I'm like, it looks like it's a pretty good ways. But I don't know if it was like maybe an hour, like not even. We sort of made it back to the junction. A lot of users going on the way back. Everybody, I think, was a little bit peppy after doing Spalding and kind of ready to head back up Sugarloaf. And then kind of ascended back up Sugarloaf and hung out a little bit up there. We took some pictures and stuff, and the views had cleared up a little bit more. There was a little bit of haze in the morning to the south, so we were just kind of checking out, shooting some more photos. And at this point, I was kind of debating which way to go back down. Again, I looked at that whole section of the Maine 4,000 footer guide on sort of the Binder and Tote roads. To be honest, it was a little confusing having been there. Like, I actually probably would have been handy maybe if I took a picture of the trail map, look in retrospect, that they have still at the slopes, because I'm sure it's like been a lot of those ski trails, even if they're maintenance roads, or I should say, a lot of the ski trails on the mountains that are maintenance roads, basically, that's a dual function thing. Like they just snow over in the winter, and they make them into ski trails. So I had a little trouble finding them down. We basically took a different route down either way than we took up. The way down was definitely more steep. We actually went sort of almost off the middle of, like, there's an old building from I think a 4-person gondola they had back to the 80s. So we kind of made our way down there, and eventually we saw some people coming up. You can see like a pretty clear herd path that people are following up the slopes. And we actually crossed a couple hikers headed up that way. And we pretty much followed our way down to a maintenance road and followed that maintenance road the majority of the way down. But it was very steep. And the one thing that stinks about ascending or descending ski trails is I just find they're very, very rough on your knees and your legs, because you're going down skis. Like even if you're going down like a green circle ski slope, it's still really steep compared to walking down a road. Yeah. So the first portion, I think we were going down like a blue square or something. And then we kind of found this road, and eventually once we got through sort of the steepest parts of it, and the footing on the road sucked too. It just was like all like really loose rock, and we were like tired, and everything was dry too, because it hasn't been that wet. So like it was almost like sandy and rocky, and just it was kind of rough on the feet. So eventually, I would say we had maybe like 500 feet left down to go. We actually just hopped over to a chairlift line and started to follow that down. You could tell people are like walking through the grass and stuff too.
Yeah.
So it was a bit rough going down, but it was really quick. I think it took us maybe an hour to get down Sugarloaf from the summit, a little bit longer than that to get back to the ski area where we parked. And this was, to me, was probably, as far as views, was the absolute best part of the hike. So the foliage, like I was saying, was just amazing, and there were open views literally everywhere because you're on ski trails the whole way down.
Right.
So we just kept stopping to take pictures of, like, I was looking back up at Wilkie and Tony kind of coming down. I got some amazing shots of them, like with foliage and Sugarloaf going up with the clouds behind them. I got some sick ones of like Ash like descending in front of me. So I was having just a blast taking pictures, to say the least. Yeah. But definitely a challenging hike. I think it was a little bit more challenging than I thought it would be. And again, a lot of it's due to that ski slopes and sort of the steep ascent, and then a really steep descent on your legs as they're getting tired. It just sort of tears your quads up. Unless you do that all the time, I think it's probably hard to sort of train. Yeah. I don't know if you'd stand on the edge of your stairs or something like downstairs, how to get that like sort of feeling that you get. But
that could have been avoided if you were able to get down that other road.
Yeah. I think if we went the way we came up, we would have had much worse views. Not worse views, but more restricted views, I should say.
Yeah.
But it probably would have been a little bit easier on the legs. I think. But yeah, we got back. So this was 60 out of 67 for me and Ash for our New England 67. So I'm pretty pumped. In. Yeah, and we got basically all the ones in that area left, except Old Spec, which is more towards the west in New Hampshire. So, like I said, we'll be back in that area for sure. Tony and Wilkie, like I mentioned, crushed it. I was proud of them. They both did super well. My father-in-law, who's now in his early 60s, is still tearing up these peaks and doing really well. His legs were killing him on the way down, and I gave him a trekking pole, but that was kind of not really shocking given that we were like hiking down ski slopes for like 2.2 miles. So yeah, and Ash did awesome as well, and it was great to get out. And the Memes had a Ryland day, so all was well in the hood.
All was right
well
in the world.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, so Saturday we wanted to do a couple little family hikes. So Wilkie and I ended up kind of just like Googling around in the morning and looking, and these things weren't even on all trails either, actually. But we wanted to get some waterfall shots. So we're like, oh, we'll just search like waterfalls, Carrabasset Valley. So the first one that kind of looked viable for us to get to, especially with Ryland, was one called Jericho Steps, and it's actually called Reedbrook Falls as well. And this was maybe like a 10-20 minute ride from like sort of the center of Carrabasset Valley where like Sugarloaf ski area is. So it was really close to the house, and maybe like a 1 mile round trip. But this will take you sort of this really nice cascade that flows over this ledge. So that was really cool. It was a very easy hike. I had Ryland in the pack, and then Lisa, Tony, Wilkie, and Ash all went. So we had a super fun time and hung out there. My father-in-law was having way too much fun posing around the waterfall, and I think fell in the stream maybe. But he was having a blast. I was taking some long exposure shots, and Ryland was being entertained just watching her baboo being silly and throwing rocks in the water and stuff.
That's awesome.
So it was a lot of fun. And then
family day.
Yeah, and then after that we went and checked out a little. So it was called West Mountain Falls. That was like near the house, basically in the Sugarloaf area. It's more of a series of cascades than like one big waterfall. Or perhaps we just didn't go far enough off the trail. But I just shout out too to Meme Claire. So my mom doesn't hike like at all, and yeah, she wanted to come with us. So the trail starts out and we're going down like 250 feet from like the golf course down to this trail to get to West Mountain Falls, and she crushed it. She did super well.
Nice.
Ash was helping her down, and yeah, I was like kind of like, wow, it's like legit like Rocky Rudy. And like, again, my mom doesn't hike at all. Like she made it actually I should say maybe like 200 yards into Artist Bluff once and like tapped out from the short side. She was like, this is too much. So I'm like, I don't know what changed, but now she's like just going down rocks and roots and like holding on to me and stuff.
She's got a granddaughter now.
Yeah, maybe it was just Ryland and Meme, Lisa, and we had the whole gang. So I was glad. Yeah. I was more nervous for her than I think she was, but she did a fantastic job getting down sort of this washed out trail leading down to the riverbed. And once we got down there, we found sort of a little spot just to hang out, and we kind of just went up and down and checked out the river and stuff. It was really pretty. Took some more pictures. We all kind of took turns. I was taking pictures of Ryland. Ryland was watching all of us just like doing putzing around the river. So she was having a fun time.
It's awesome.
And then on the way back, me and Wilkie decided to just walk back to the house, which it was like a mile away. We drove there. So we just walked back, took some more pictures, and walked through the neighborhood in a lovely little neighborhood around Sugarloaf. So
sweet.
Yeah, man, it was a good time. We ended up going back on Sunday. A little disappointed that though I guess I made up for it because I did see the Northern Lights from Rehoboth the other night, which was super sick. Yeah. I got some pictures, but there was like a high aurora forecast every night we were up there, and it never happened.
Oh,
so I kept like poking out. It wasn't happening. I could have got star shots one night, but I was just being lazy. But me and Wilkie, we kept looking, and like it just didn't happen. So that made up for it. But yeah, man, we pretty much just like hung out Saturday night and then drove back Sunday, and that was it. Hit some traffic, come back Sunday, which was not shocking given its foliage season, and we're coming back from Maine to Mass. So, but yeah, dude, it was a lot of fun. So Maine's 4,000 footers, that whole area, Carrabasset Valley, like I'm looking forward to getting back up there again. It was a bunch of fun. It's a really pretty area. Definitely more low key than New Hampshire. And I don't know if at that point it's not really the end of the Appalachian Trail, but you're getting down there. We did cross one AT hiker. I forget his name. But he was super chill. So I imagine he's really going to be busting it to try to get to Katahdin. Like, I don't know if we'll finish this year, but yeah, it was a lot of fun, dude.
Sweet. Awesome, dude. Yeah, that sounds like a great trip. I gotta get up to Maine and try. I've hiked New Hampshire. I want to see what a Maine mountain feels like.
Yeah, I'm sure there's way more than the 4,000 footers too, like with everything, but I was drooling over looking at that area because especially we could see the Bigelows, which on the Bigelows there's West Bigelow and then Avery Peak, two 4,000 footers. So I think I'm already like maybe we'll try to finish on those because those look pretty like open alpine zone or perhaps Abraham.
Nice.
Yeah.
Word. You ready to wrap this thing up?
Yeah. Do you have a hypothetical you think for us?
Yeah, I do. We'll get into that. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Nick, buckle up. This is a big one. It's
oh boy,
a long one.
I have to take a sip of my lemon seltzer.
Yeah.
Spindrift, sponsor podcast.
All right, so Nick, a major earthquake.
Josh, sorry,
Don't interrupt me.
I was taking a sip.
A major earthquake occurs in California. After the damage is assessed, workers discover a strange type of clay that was exposed by the fault line. Immediately, certain workers report a bizarre sensation. Merely touching the clay gives them a euphoric, almost sexual sense of well-being. They only need to touch it once to feel great forever. Soon, thousands of people begin flocking to the clay to experience it. About 1 in 4 people feel the euphoric effect, regardless of gender, age, or nationality. The rest of the populace feels nothing at all. Scientists who study the atomic structure of the clay realize this substance could also serve as the cleanest, most completely efficient fuel ever discovered. 1 pound of clay could power all of Los Angeles for 10 years. However, those who have been personally and spiritually affected by the clay implore the government not to pursue this avenue. They insist that using the clay as energy will destroy mankind's ability to feel joy. They cannot explain what this means, but they overwhelmingly and specifically suggest that this is literally what will happen. In fact, many of them claim they will attempt to overthrow the U.S. government if the clay is misused in any way whatsoever. All right, Nick, you ready for the question?
Yeah, I'm curious where the question. I'm trying to pay attention throughout this. I'm curious where the question's going to go.
So you are in the second term of your tenure as President of the United States. The clay has no effect on you whatsoever. Would you support an initiative that allows 5% of the clay to be mined?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The most efficient, best fuel ever of all time.
That sounds like a pretty good thing.
Yeah, that sounds like a good thing too.
I don't need these clay folks.
all these weird.
What are these clay folks going to do to overthrow the government? They're just out there like feeling the clay and stuff.
Yeah,
that's it.
Having weird clay orgies.
Just getting
and
weird.
It doesn't even. It's only what 20%.
Yeah, it's like 25% of people that actually
population.
does anything.
Yeah, who needs them? Who needs that 25%? I'll have to pay nothing for gas, dude.
Yeah, that just that seems like it's a very interesting. Like that had the longest setup I think of any hypothetical you've done.
Yeah.
I was like, where are we again?
I think that's what you need though, because you came with the quickest answer. You need a good long setup.
Yeah, no.
Like,
I was just thinking these
that clay.
Like, yeah, it just sounds. I mean, not even if I was in my first term, I'd still be like, we're gonna mine the clay. I like how they mentioned second term is in like there's not repercussions. You don't have to get reelected. Like,
yeah,
I'd run on that. I'd be like, that'd be my slogan: mine the clay.
Yeah, it's the cleanest, most completely efficient fuel ever discovered.
And these people can't explain why it's gonna end humanity. So
it's not.
I think they're just high off the clay.
They got the clay. They got the clay high.
Yeah, they got the clay high.
They're just out having clay orgies and just doing weird clay things. It's like
making all sorts of objects with the clay.
Yeah. It's like they're basically huffing gasoline, dude.
That's my thought is like when they're saying like this thing is going to end humanity, but it gets me high. It's kind of like I feel like there's a lot of different chemicals and things you can burn that are also efficient fuels that just get you. Yeah, it just seems.
It's basically like huffing gasoline. They're like, I'm gonna put this in my car. I need it. It makes me feel good. No, we're not doing that. Oh yeah, good call, Nick.
These clay. I'm not afraid of no clay hippies.
I'm afraid no clay. Awesome, dude.
Cool,
awesome.
Man.
Another great episode, guy.
Yeah. So we do want to remind everybody that our podcast is sponsored by Adventuristic Clothing. So Adventuristic is a clothing company by our good friend Lori, who just sat in on our Nepal episode. And it's all her company. She designs everything. She's running it herself. She's doing a fantastic job. Got all these winter designs coming out. Looks super exciting. Looking forward to seeing those drop in November. And you can check them out at adventuristic.com, adventuristic.com. And over there you can use codes PUDS Pod, PUDS POD, for 20% off your first order and free shipping. So check them out. I know Josh was rocking his adventuristic shirt when he went to Sauchuk's farm. So that was cool.
Yeah, dude.
And I've got a nice beanie I've been wearing in the mornings when I've been hiking Diamond Hill. So
it's awesome.
Good stuff.
Good stuff coming out for the winter. Check them out. Check out Adventuristic. And don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us at PUDs Podcast. And
PUDs Podcast on Facebook.
Yeah.
YouTube.
On Instagram. Yeah, we're on YouTube. We'll probably get this video out. So yeah, we'll check us out on YouTube. We do have video now, so we'll definitely take advantage of that. So yeah, like, review, subscribe, share.
Order stickers while they're in there.
Just ask for them. You don't even have to order them. They are free. Just ask.
Really, I should say that. Just messages. That's it. We don't have an ordering system.
Stickers, please.
Not yet, anyways.
But yeah, so until next time, bippity boppity, give me the zoppity.
Bye.
PUDs Podcast was produced and recorded in Black Cat Studios by the Pud Boys. Find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving us a review and subscribing. Find us on social media, and we'll see you next time.